Hello, welcome to Inspiring Women with ADHD. I'm Renee Allen, the host of this podcast, and I'm excited to be here. I always wonder if I should move the microphone down. I'm wearing a Florida Gators shirt today because last night Florida won the national championship in basketball. Barely the last 3 games. They make you stay on the edge for the whole game. But I'm excited. I even wore my bracelet. That's orange and blue and white. But I'm excited you're here today. That's not what I'm going to talk about, but I just thought I had to represent since I live in Florida now. But today I'm going to talk about why it is so hard to follow instructions, directions, or understand instructions or directions, make sense of it. And this could be any kind of instruction. This could be somebody telling you, oh, I just live down the street. And, thankfully we have maps and things like that we're kind of like, I'm actually going to have to rely on that to get there. Or being at the doctor's office and you ask, where's the restroom? Oh, go down the hall, turn to the left, second door on the right. There are a few instructions there. Go down the hall, turn left. How many doors and which way? So there's things that we have to line up in our brains to be able to remember. It doesn't always work with ADHD. Even if you are cooking and you are going to follow a recipe, if it's a recipe you've made before, you probably have the grand picture of how that works. If it's new to you, if it has steps that you're not used to doing, I usually debate those steps. Like if it's a cookie recipe that requires chilling the dough for an hour, I might say, I'm not doing that and not do it. It might make the cookies turn out different. But if I do include that, will I remember to do it? If it has different steps for the frosting or rolling it in cinnamon sugar or whatever it is. I just made snickerdoodles last week. We have to make sense of that. At least I do. I need to make sense of what's going on before I start doing it. And if I don't, I'm a scrambled mess. It's really great to know that you have ADHD when you wonder for years and years why you can't make sense of certain instructions, and other times you can. It could even be going to school. You could look back in high school. Maybe you are in high school, maybe you're in middle school, and the teacher is giving instructions. This homework is due next Thursday. You need to do problems, blah, 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 blah. And then for the test, all these instructions are coming at you verbally. Are you writing them down? Will that help? Are you trying to listen? Are you already tuned out and then you come in at the end and you don't want to say, wait, what? And then have the teacher upset that you weren't listening? As an adult, people are a little more patient with that, but I find often I'm the only one in the room saying, wait, when is that dinner? When is that party? When is that? What time are we supposed to be there? And you're looking for people to donate what? Oh, desserts, all of that. I have to have an idea of it in my mind, and often there are holes. And I ask, that's that making that advocation, what's it called? I can't even, I swear, my memory recall of words isn't the great. Accommodations, making accommodations for myself. That might be, I'm a question asker. That might be, I'm writing down notes or putting it in my phone. There used to be a time when if you picked up your phone, people always thought you were texting. Hopefully that time has passed because sometimes we're writing down notes. Sometimes we're putting it on our calendars. Sometimes we have to use it to be able to listen because we need to be able to do something else at the same time. But there are a lot of instances where we are required to understand directions. I've mentioned this before. I found at some point, if you go back and look, if you have this problem with your executive function, you can probably find where it showed up in your life. For me, I did really well in school, I think, listening to instructions, but I noticed a deficit. I noticed I had to make an accommodation for myself. I noticed myself raising my hand and asking questions when it was another language. My brain didn't have a good memory of sounds and words taught and conjugation. I took Spanish in high school and college. I hardly know any Spanish because I didn't really go into the world using it. And even when I graduated from college, I moved to Southern California and would go to the grocery store and hear people speaking in Spanish. And I thought, why do they talk so fast? They blur all the words together. Like, how am I supposed to? When you read them, you can see the words separately. When they're saying them, it's like a big sound. And my brain couldn't make sense of that. But in Spanish class in high school, I found that if the teacher introduced a new word, I would raise my hand and say, can you write that on the board? Or how is that spelled? I still do that when people ask or when people tell me their names. Most of the time, I mean, if it's a name like Mary, I'll probably remember. But there are a lot of names that sound similar. There are many names that are new to my brain, and it's already hard to remember a name. And if I don't know how it's spelled, I may not even be trying to remember the right name. And so having it spelled gives me a mental picture. I can see it as a photo. I can see it as a picture. I can see it as a drawing. I can see it written like on the board. That speaks to my brain in a different way than sounds. It was really challenging when we went to Israel in 2022. It was right when things opened up after COVID and before war times, before it got busier with tourism and stuff. From California, it was $300 round trip to fly to Israel. And my son wanted us to go with him, my son and his wife. I didn't want to go because I just thought I'd rather watch the grandchildren. But I went, and my son speaks Hebrew. He speaks a lot of languages. He doesn't have working memory problems. He doesn't believe he has ADHD. The rest of us do, but he doesn't have working memory problems at all. And he's extra gifted in language. So he knew Hebrew. Over and over, I would say, how do you ask, where's the bathroom? Or I'd ask him, and he'd teach me so I could ask. I could only do it if I repeated it immediately after he said it. I did not have a working memory to be able to store that where I could recall it. I even tried to take each sound and say, because of course I still don't remember it, but each sound and make it like, oh, that's kind of like this word. Oh, that's kind of like that word. Sometimes that's helpful. Like it sounds like survey or something like that, whatever it is. That's helped me with other words, but not with where's the bathroom. And my son, bless his heart, would just say, Mama, I've told you this. And I'm like, I know. I know. I still don't know. I should ask him again. I should write it down. I didn't write it down ever when we were there. But it's not like I'm going to be back there and need to. That's my life, is needing to ask to go to the bathroom or finding out where that is. But our brains need to be able to process information that comes. Any instruction is information, and working memory is different than short-term memory and long-term memory. Working memory takes the information and turns it into a picture or an idea, or it puts it somewhere where you will remember, whether it's for short-term or long-term. Short-term is 30 seconds or less. That's what I've read. The most, like I need to go in the kitchen and do this. If I put that information, a lot of information comes from our own heads. I need to go in the kitchen and do this. If my working memory is working, then I will remember. That will get stored into a short-term memory. Within 30 seconds, I'll remember to go. A long-term memory might be, longer than 30 seconds, but I won't get into that right now. I have really good long-term memory. Once something's stored, it's there, baby. Although I tell you, I forget things like accommodations and stuff. It's just because I get scattered, but it's there. It's there. Once I relax my brain, once I'm not trying to remember what's going on, I totally remember, and all the details of when I was a child and what everybody wore and what they said. But okay, working memory. So let's look at some ways that this could show up in your life. If you have a hard time following instructions, if you're playing a game with people and they say, okay, here's the rules, and you're going, okay, what's the rules? And then you start to hear them. How do you process those? Do you just go, oh, okay, 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 and then all of a sudden you know how to play the game? I think that's how it works for a lot of people. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice? It doesn't work that way for me. I have to see them in order. I have to be able to get a picture, imagine it working out. And once I see it, it's like I'm building a story in my brain. Oh, that makes sense. And I call that, I don't know if anybody else in the world calls that, wrap my head around it. I've wrapped my head around it. I understand. I know what to do. I know how to play checkers. That game doesn't have too many steps. Although it's been so long, who knows if I actually know how to play. I bet I probably do. But yeah, there are a lot of things that take a lot of steps. And if you can't hold on to that information, if you can't organize that information, put it in steps in the way that it needs to be, because if your brain isn't picking up in a fluid way, in a step-by-step way, you might be missing part of it. And that's okay if you're able to get that information somehow so you can make sense of it. Recipes are nice because you can see the steps. Recipes on websites are not so nice if you just go to them and try to get that information, because what do? They give you a bunch of ads. And they give you all the pictures of the recipes, and they give you the story behind, this was my grandmother's. And I love stories, I do. But I want the recipe. I want to make cookies. I want to make dinner. I want to make whatever it is that I've decided to make. I don't love to cook or bake as much as I used to. It took a lot, and it's almost by by, what did you say? Not by chance, not by luck. It's a success. It's a win that I'm actually at this point. Let's just put it that way. I'm at this point where I've motivated myself and I am ready to make this chicken dish, whatever it is. And I am looking up recipes. That looks good. I love that they have the jump to the recipe button. Usually that will give you what you need. I can see the steps, and if it's not too many, if it is divided into take the vegetables and saute them, I have to think, okay, there's my first picture. Do I have those vegetables? What dish would I use? What pan? I could put those over there. Organize that chunk. I can see, okay, so you do the vegetables, and then what happens? And then there's this, and then there's this, and then you put it in the oven. So I see the story, the picture of how that's going to work. I take the information to see, do we have that food? If we don't, do I have dried onions? All of that. And if I can get that picture, I may not remember it all, but at least I can start. I have the confidence to start. And it's important to find out what your accommodations are. How does it work for you? Does it work better to get all the ingredients and put them on the counter first? That's how it works for me. If I can get them all there first, then I don't get partway through and realize you actually don't have any butter. You actually don't have this. And then you're like, oh no. Have you ever put something in the fridge that's like a part way done recipe because you don't have everything? So that could be. But you're more than likely, even if you get that mental picture, you're more than likely going to need to go back and look at it again and kind of keep track in your mind. Did I already add the salt? And then it really helps if you keep your teaspoons or whatever there and don't use them for other things. Sometimes I try to bypass doing extra dishes and use them again. But if you have them there and you can at least see a little bit of salt, yeah. Because if you don't have a good working memory of even remembering that you put the salt in and put it away, that can be a problem. If I could count all the times I've made bread without salt or sugar, or I'm making bread and I've made it forever, but I keep forgetting ingredients like that. So you might need to refer back to your recipe. If that's the case, what's a good form for that recipe? If you're finding it online, is it helpful for you to just keep your laptop or iPad or phone on the counter and use that? For me, it's not. I've learned it kind of drives me crazy to do that. I'd much rather print it out. I know that takes paper, but I'd much rather print it out or at least save it into a PDF where it's just this screen. It's just that. It's not a tab. It's not something that might get me distracted. It's a snapshot, a screenshot, snapshot. That must be why they call it a screenshot, huh? If you have a way that's easier for you to go back for it, then do it that way. Do it that way so that it's easier for you to do it. Back to the whole, why is it hard for me to understand instructions? So each step requires your brain. It adds to the cognitive load. So if your brain has to make sense of a process, more steps will probably be harder because it's like adding rocks to the backpack, more. At some point, it might be harder. If you're trying to focus on this other step, you might forget another one. But if you can get to a point where, okay, I'm going to take the screen out of my window and there's a hole in it, I can take that off, I can buy other screen, I can put it in, but how do I put it in? And then you go and watch a YouTube video and you find out YouTube videos are great ways for me to learn. Or you realize I have a really hard time paying attention to instructions on a YouTube video. And that is me. It almost drives me crazy to watch them because I don't have the patience to watch the stuff that's not helping me. And when they do say the stuff that's helping me, they go by it so fast. Not all the time, okay, but most of the time they go by it so fast. Or they say the words in a way that I don't hear, so then I put on the captions, or I have to kind of keep going back. I really like to have written instructions. And sometimes it is nice to watch somebody do something and see how they do it. I did learn, it took me a few videos, how to drill holes in the bottom of a pot for a plant. Because a lot of the pots that you buy at the store now for plants don't have holes in the bottom. They don't have a drainage hole. And so you could put the little plastic thing inside of it. But I don't really like doing that. Like I want to actually have it in the pot. And I don't know, I think it's probably better for the soil, but maybe not. But I started thinking, could I drill my own hole? How would I do that? There's a whole process. You have to get it wet so it doesn't crack the ceramic. You have to have a certain kind of drill bit so it goes at an angle. There are different methods, like actually have the water on it while you drill, which seems to me like you might get shocked. There were a lot of things. So I did watch a few things. I asked my husband, do you have these drill bits? Could you help me with this? Because I didn't trust my control level with that. But I was able to do some by myself. But it took me a while. It wasn't just one video. It was a combination of the way people talk to me, the way they explain things, the ability that I had to accept their instruction instead of reject it. Do you ever do that? Do you have a brain that wants to just push back and say, I don't know, that doesn't sound good to me? I do. So that also gets in the way. If I'm playing a game too, I might even question things. Do you have a questioning brain? Well, why would they do it that way? Like, why couldn't we just do this? It would be nice if the rules had this. So you have to be able to make sense of the instructions, even if they're going to be written and they're right in front of you. It is really helpful to see it, picture it, have that confidence that you can do it. And if you struggle with this like I do, I think that confidence, maybe I didn't need that when I was younger, but I think that's a need. Every once in a while when I talk about stuff on the podcast, I get kind of like my heart beats faster, not like I'm going to cry, but I start to realize this is actually emotional. Like, you start to realize that these needs come because you're not always able to do it. And going into something and doing something when you don't understand what you're doing, it's not like it's frightening. It's like it just leaves you with a scattered brain and it doesn't feel good. I don't even know that it's anxiety. It's just like I feel very uncomfortable now, and now I can't even function as well as I normally can without the full picture because I'm not starting on good ground. I'm not starting in a place of confidence. So I think an accommodation I've made for myself even, and I'm 60. I don't know if I've said that on here. I turned 60 last October. And it's just so bizarre. It's so bizarre to be 60. It was crazy to hit the 50s. 40 was kind of like, well, I knew people who were becoming 40, and still I know people who are becoming 50 and 60. But yeah, so I would say in the past 5 years, especially in understanding that I have ADHD, I'm realizing you have to give yourself the most padded surface, the most pleasant spot to begin with, so that you can accomplish things. And it's interesting because I don't know if you've done this, if you've talked to people who don't have ADHD, and they say, I've always thought you did this. This is great. I always looked up to you with this. And I'm not discounting those things. Like I know that many of us have achieved great things and are very capable and have done really well. But if you look back, you probably see the whys. And you probably see that there were times where you just thought, this is harder to do than it should be. And I don't like being in the this is harder to be than it should be frame of mind. I like to be, let me get all the information I can. Let me understand this before I take a step. Because even if I'm there's a chance I might forget the salt. I might forget a step. I might not cut the screen right or something if I'm replacing a screen. Whatever it is, I want to be able to understand it in my brain before I do it. And it goes back to that one episode when I talked about like doing things your way. Sometimes you do reject steps because you know that won't be as doable for your brain. And sometimes I think I sound more, I mean, we always project we always have ideas about what other people think of us. But sometimes I think I might come off as, well, I can't do it that way. Like I can't do it that way you want me to if someone's giving me directions to do something. That's somebody in a place of authority for me, like at work or at church or something that's in charge of something and they're delegating something to me and I'd like you to do this. And I think right away, I know I can't do that way. So I could do this. And a lot of times they aren't accepting of it. I know a lot of people say, don't ask permission, just, what is it? It's like easier to ask forgiveness than ask permission. Yeah. So I've found ways of working around things, like go with their general theme or their big picture, but I still need to come about it my way, even with math. I know a lot of women. I have a friend who just found out she had ADHD. She might be listening, but she said she super, super struggled with math. For whatever reason, my brain was gifted with math. I could do math really, really well and always scored super, super high in math. But I also found that I had to, sorry, my alarm went off. Hopefully that doesn't show up. It's time to leave for the doctor. I also found that I could follow the steps of what they said to do, but I had this creative mind that if I found a way to get there, to get the answer, or sometimes it wasn't even like it's like I had ideas of, this could work. This could work. And they do that more in math now, I think, like what's 20 plus 5? We'll go 20 and then put the 5 and 5 plus 0 is 5 and 20, that kind of thing, or count by fives. They have different ways to get there. They show kids different ways to get to that answer, or multiplying harder numbers. You just multiply like 100 3 times, like what's 99 times 3? You do 3 times 100, and then you just subtract 3 because 3 times that 99 is just 1 less than 100. There's those little tricks. And they teach those to children more now. But when I was growing up, I just would learn that, and that became fun for me. And I'm grateful that I went to school at a time where teachers enjoyed that. They like, that's fun. I'd say, I go up, I got this too, but, turning in my homework or something, but I found this way to do it. And I thought it was really exciting. Oh, that's great. That's great. It seemed like by the time I was graduating from high school, they were more like, show your steps and do it exactly like we want you to. And there's probably a reason for that. But that didn't work as well for my brain. So I'm glad I didn't go to school when that was required. And maybe it's not the same everywhere, but it was at that time for me. Yeah, I'm going to make this a 2-part because I really do have to go to the doctor. And I want to release this episode today. I don't even know how long I've been talking because I have more with this. And just to end it today, if it's frustrating or hard for you, especially with verbal instructions, and maybe you don't have problems with verbal instructions, maybe it's written, maybe it's just the words don't make sense on the page, maybe, and with ADHD, often we take out some words, some sentences, some parts, and forget some. I do that too. If you have a struggle with that, it doesn't have anything to do with intelligence. It has to do with how your brain is processing that information and how you can get it to where you can store it, you can use it, and it's helpful in your life, whether it's to accomplish a task, play a game, whatever it is, get to where you need to go with directions. If maps doesn't get you there, sometimes it doesn't. That's where I'm going to end today. But thank you so much for being here. I'll be back again. I have another episode that I want to have this week, so I'll just continue with this one. But I want to get this one out and wish you a happy rest of your week. Go Gators! And I'm almost finished with my website. If you want, you can go check it out. It actually doesn't give you some error page. It just looks like it's part template and part Renee's been playing with it. But it's renee-allen.com if you want to explore that. You don't have to or anything. More than anything, if you could tell 2 friends, 2 people you know about this podcast, whether you just send an episode in a text and say, hey, I think you'd like that, that would be wonderful. I'd love to have more of us out there listening together. Thanks so much. Bye.
Double chins, rubber ducks, squeaky cheese and paper cups, applesauce, Superman, rocket ships and Peter Pan, boogie boards and parachutes and soda cans, jumping jacks and pillowcases for my hands, Donald Duck and fire trucks and Pokemon, Santa Claus and Johnny Depp and Donkey Kong, chocolate chips and zippers at the 914, little children jumping on the trampoline, model trains and passing lanes and super glue, tangerines and magazines and kangaroo. Daily Rock. Rewind, I've run out of time to sing melodies and harmonies. I'm cut short. The silence of sound has yet been found, but not by me. I buttered my toast, spread on some grape jelly. I don't mean to boast, but I'm a chef and a good one. My grandma can't hear me. The breakfast is done. Ever getting colder, ever older, so I run. Open windows, broken shadows. Frozen dreams are left for tomorrow. Without a cause, no time for a pause. Rewind, I've run out of time to sing melodies and harmonies. I'm cut short. The silence of sound has yet been found, but not by me.